For the longest time, I secretly wanted more. I often found myself shrinking to fit in, settling for what was comfortable, and even selling myself short. Once I finally accepted that we deserve success and we are blessed with the power to achieve it, I stopped playing small. I'm serious about building a life I love, and you should be too. I'm Denise Taylor of DeniseTaylor.live, and welcome to Life, Love, and the Pursuit of Happiness. I help women prioritize themselves, their success, and their happiness. Let's meet this week's achiever whose story will inspire you to push past your fears and soar. Well, hello, it's Denise Taylor, and I am so excited that you have tuned in to today's episode of Life, Love, and the Pursuit of Happiness. Now, here is where we celebrate the success of everyday people who have been committed to their dreams and their determinations, and oftentimes who have made decisions that have been impactful to their lives. You are in the right place for encouragement. You are in the right place for inspiration, and I am so glad that you tuned in. Now, today's guest is no stranger to pushing past fear, pushing past issues, and pushing past obstacles. But what they were able to do in this particular case was really deep and personal. Now, as you know, if you've been listening to Life, Love, and the Pursuit of Happiness any amount of time, there are 5 superpowers that I believe are critical for your success. This guest illuminates the superpower of shaking off fear. When I think about Tammy and what she had to face and overcome with her struggle of hair loss, I saw her dig deep and not believe what she saw, and only believe what she believed about herself. This story is so powerful that you are not going to want to miss 1 minute of it. So please listen in. And what I want you to listen carefully for is what I call superpower number 2, which is shake off fear. It permeates through Tammy's story. Now let's listen to the episode, and I'll catch you on the other side. Thanks again for tuning in. Today, we are going to anchor in on success in life. I have with me today the beautiful Tammy Dotson. She has faced very challenging circumstances, and she persevered and refused to allow it to steal her joy. Now, she looks like a cute little PYT, 30 at least, but she just recently retired from active military service. Thank you so much for your service in the Air Force. And in addition to that, Tammy is an avid fitness beast. She runs, she swims, she bikes, she brings it all out on the pavement and in the pool. Today, we'll unpack so much of her journey, but I asked her specifically to come today to share with us her journey with hair loss. When I read her post, it exemplified so much strength. You see, I admired Tammy for all the things I saw her doing, not only in her church and as she did in fitness, but when I read her story about how she conquered and overcame so much around hair loss, I knew that her strength ran deep. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
So Denise, first, thank you so much for this wonderful opportunity. And I'm telling y'all, she is the perfect hype woman. She will hype you up in a heartbeat. I mean, she got me all in my feels and everything right now. But like she said, my name is Tammy Dotson, and I just retired after 23 wonderful years in the United States Air Force. And I'm a mom, I'm an entrepreneur, and, avid triathlete, and really just living life.
So beautiful. And, when I read your story, I just could not believe it because, of course, from the front, you really can't take in the experience. And I've only had the pleasure of knowing you through social media. So, you know, your selfies are always on point, right? And when you told your story, I was amazed. I saw your beauty and your courage in a new way. Take us through your journey with Triple CA, for also known as alopecia, which began for you at age 25. You described it as devastating. Walk us through what happened.
Absolutely. So 25 years old, I had this long flowing hair.
Mhm.
And one morning I woke up literally with my scalp on fire and my like clumps of hair on my pillow.
Mhm.
Now, ladies, I know we know how it is when we get a relaxer. And it had that feeling as if a relaxer had been left in my head for too long. Like it was burning, searing on fire.
Mm.
Of course, I went to the emergency room that day and nobody really knew what it was. They said I had maybe an allergic reaction to something and gave me some steroid cream, some antibiotics, things to kind of calm it down.
Mhm.
That, little did I know, was the first day into this journey of trying to figure out what was going on and why I was losing hair.
Mhm.
It wasn't until I would say a few years later that I met a doctor who was a Caucasian doctor whose wife happened to be African American. And he looked at me and was like, yes, that's alopecia. You have alopecia. Never knew, had not heard of alopecia, didn't know what alopecia was. And at the time, we didn't really have Google to kind of go and try to look it up really quick like we do now. He actually referred me to another specialist, dermatologist, and they did a biopsy, a scalp biopsy, and then did confirm what alopecia is. Now, the alopecia is a broad range of hair loss, primarily in women, also in men. But the type that I had was actually called central centrifugal cicatricial alopecia, or triple CA. And that's a subset where women develop an area of thinning in the center of their hair and the scalp, and then it gradually just kind of spreads outward. So it starts like right in the middle, and then it just spreads out. Now, it's suspected to be an inflammatory process that's induced by genetic or environmental factors. But what that inflammation process does is it actually destroys the hair follicle. So it leaves you with just a shiny white bald scalp. Now, it's not reversible. Once the hair follicles have been killed, they're not coming back. They're not going to regenerate. They're not coming back once that hair follicle is done. So once the treatment really is to stop the spread or help slow the spread. And that's really what ended up happening. By the time that they got to me, I had a nice, just smooth scalp. And the focus really became, how can we stop it from spreading?
Wow. You know, you experienced not only the pain, you know, you talked about it burning and all of those sensations that you actually suffered for a number of years. You talked about the hair loss and how devastating that was before you actually received that diagnosis of triple CA. But let's dive down a little bit into that emotional torment that had to be there, right? You know, I actually have a picture of what you described, and I want to share it so that everyone could see. You know, this was you at 25. This was your hair, long. You were in the prime of your life, as we all say, as a young lady. And this whole situation comes in. So I imagine the devastation that comes along with that had to be really real, beyond the pain that you were experiencing. So help us understand what she was going through, what you were going through.
Yeah, I think just like any person, our hair is our crown and glory. And we can say all along that it doesn't define us, it doesn't make us who we are, but you know as well as I do, once you leave the beauty shop, let your beautician hook your do up. You walk out of that chair and out of that shop, and can't nobody tell you nothing for the rest of the day, because that confidence is just so high. I mean, it's natural. So it really kind of put me into a spiral of, I don't want to say depression, but a lack of my self-esteem and my self-confidence definitely took a hit, especially because in the military, being a leader, being out in front of people, having to speak in front of people, I always had this paranoia that people were staring at me, that they could see the bald spots, that they, even as much as I tried to cover it by pulling my hair back, by wearing ponytails on the top of my hair to kind of cover the spots, I didn't like to be in the front in church. I didn't like to be in the front of lines, basically in the movie theater, anything where people could sit behind me, on the airplane, bus, whatever it was, because I just always felt like people were staring. As the hair thinned out more and more and the hair loss became more and more, it really became difficult to try and cover it up all the time. It was extremely stressful. And I tried every concoction that was out there. I tried every grow your hair back regimen, every shampoo that was guaranteed to grow your hair back, everything. And nothing worked. It also became so extreme that because my scalp is so sensitive, I couldn't wear weaves. I couldn't wear braids. I couldn't, even wigs. Putting wigs on would cause a flare up where the scalp would become inflamed and I would get all these sores. So it truly became at some point where I had to learn to accept where I was and what was going on.
Wow. Now, what personal support or help did you find valuable when you hit your lowest point in this journey?
For me, definitely it was my faith. It was my faith in God and prayer, and just really speaking affirmations daily, saying to myself what God says about me, that I am fearfully and wonderfully made, that I am created in his likeness, and just really telling myself over and over again that I'm beautiful, that my hair doesn't define me, that really what matters is what's on the inside. And as long as I can make what's on the inside shine on the outside, that's really what matters.
And I can definitely tell you that's everything that I've seen. And, before I became fully aware, that was the beauty that was shining through. You talked about trying everything, and I can't even imagine what you've invested in trying every tip, trick, everything you saw, just really putting hope in trying to turn the situation around. How did you truly get to that point of acceptance and healing in this journey?
So after my last bout with PRP, platelet-rich plasma, I did PRP therapy, and that consisted of basically getting 20 shots in my head, in my scalp, every 4 weeks. I did 5 rounds of that. And then I did a year of steroid treatments, which again is getting shots, like 20 shots in your head every month with little to no result. That was like the ultimate. I said, you know what? I can't do this anymore. And for what? Like who was I doing it for? I went natural, I would say back in 2008, and that kind of started my journey, because the first thing was I had to get rid of chemical treatments. And it was, we love our creamy crack. It was very hard for me to kind of transition, but I went ahead, I did the big chop in 2008, and loved my, my curls and the natural kind of the little toile that I had. So with that, obviously, there's no room to cover up anything. And it eventually just transitioned into the stress was not worth it. It was not worth it. And so in this environment nowadays, we are a little more accepting than 20 years ago. And so people didn't really talk. They didn't really talk. They didn't really say anything. But those that were curious would actually ask questions. And I realized it allowed me the opportunity to open up and talk to people and share my story, which was freeing. It was freeing for me and was a blessing to others. And so people are more open to ask questions. And I've realized that when people would actually ask questions, it gave me the opportunity to share my story or talk with them about little things that were not really talked about. And it was very freeing. That was a freeing feeling. And in doing so, not only was it freeing for me, but it allowed me to be a blessing to others. Because little did I know, there are several people that experience alopecia or experience some type of hair loss. And it allowed me to be able to speak life into other people.
Absolutely. You know, when I read your testimony, it was so powerful. You said in it, you said, there comes a time when you accept the things you cannot change and learn to live with your new normal. And I know that your journey to being able to say that statement wasn't easy. And especially facing all the superficial biases that often challenge differences. Tell me about what that was like. You know, you talked about people's curiosity, but I imagine that in the dating game, you know, that had to be something that played a factor as well.
It did. I will never forget a guy that I was dating that happened to see my bald area. And he shared with me that it scared him so much. Like, you know, we ended up not being together because he just felt like he couldn't look at me the same, or he couldn't deal with it. And that may have been a maturity thing at that particular age, in our, you know, young 30s. But it was a real feeling, you know, and it made me realize that when I would be dating people, I always struggled with, you know, do I be me and just, you know, bald and all, or do I try to cover it up? Or is that catfishing? Or is, you know, all of these things that I'm struggling with eventually I was just like, you know what? I don't want to deal with any of it. In the end, my prayer is that there will be somebody who accepts me for me, bald and all, patches and all. And that is who God is going to have me to be with.
Absolutely. And that person will see the beauty and the qualities that radiate from you and your confidence. Now, tell me about this fitness journey. Was that a factor in your getting to the point where you're confident and, you know, like you're a fitness beast. I don't know if you categorize yourself as that, but for those of us who don't even dip our toe in the water that far, I look at you and I marvel at the strength and the power and the confidence that you exude. When did that become a part of your journey?
It actually became a part of my journey from the breakup of said person that I mentioned before. That was my first marathon that I trained for, and it was with Train to End Stroke. So I did the fundraising and you know, went through the whole training, and it really was about what is something that I've never done before that would be a challenge that is just kind of in your mind. You're like, who does that? Like in my mind, I was like, who runs 26 miles? That's not human. But it opened me up to a world of support and community and just a bond like no other. So that was actually kind of the start of my running journey. And then recently, I'd say a few years ago, I got connected with a group of just powerful females who do triathlon.
Mm-hmm.
And so again, a new journey, a new opportunity for me to meet people and inspire others.
Wow, that's just incredible. So the other thing, you had a lot of little good quotes in your testimony, but the one that I totally agree with, it said, there is something uniquely attractive about a woman with a bald head. It exudes confidence, boldness, and strength. That is such a powerful proclamation to assert for yourself. How do you stay in that vein, and what practices do you have to support that mental toughness?
Again, daily devotion, my prayer, church family, and then being around other like-minded individuals. Now, I tell you, in the morning when you get up, if you aren't your own best cheerleader, how can you expect other people to do it? So yeah, when I get up in the morning and I walk past myself in the mirror, I'm like, girl, you bad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Girl, oh, you cute. Mm-hmm. Okay, all right. Work that. And I mean, Mary J. Blige's song, Work That. Mm-hmm. And there's another song, is it Meghan Trainor, I think? I can't help feeling this way, or
Mm-hmm.
that type. But really just getting yourself pumped up. Mm-hmm. You got it. Because if you don't believe it, how can you expect others to?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I know, when we had our conversations, you were telling me about the inspiration from Sanaa Lathan's movie and the inspiration from India Arie. And I think culturally, we are definitely driving to more acceptance of not only race and beliefs, but also when people don't look like you, or they are facing things that give them a difference that makes them uniquely beautiful. And so I just want to encourage you, and I'm glad that you have those inspirations, but I'm even more glad that we are starting to look more about the beauty and the confidence of what's in a person more than just what's on the outside of them.
Absolutely. Now, and I think that, when Sanaa Lathan shaved her head off for the movie Nappily Ever After, I mean, that was epic. Sanaa, she's a beautiful woman. And I think right there is what really gave me that push to shave my head. I had been wanting to, shave it for a while, but was always nervous. And I would get to right to the little like buzz area and just say, okay, leave a shadow. But I will tell you, when she shaved her head, that right there was the jumping off point for me to say, okay, she's beautiful. I can do this.
Mm-hmm. I actually have a friend. She recently shaved her head, and I was really like, is everything okay? Because that has become a rite of passage for people who are suffering with breast cancer. So when she made that choice, I reached out and she said, no, she just felt like she wanted to give herself a fresh start. And so I think that people are embracing it. And I agree with your statement that it exudes confidence, and it just radiates the beauty from within. Like I said, I had no idea that you were bald. I had no idea. I just thought you was rocking the heck out of your short look. But when I read your post, I was inspired. I thought to myself, for everything that I saw you doing and sharing about your faith and sharing about your courage, especially in fitness, and just sharing about your journey, this was like the icing on the cake where you threw down the mic and said, who's bad, right? I just felt like you owned that moment. And my heart's desire for you is that you never let up off of it. And I want you to know that I believe you are beautiful. And I love everything about what you brought forward and your willingness to share with us here. Now, I want to show one last picture that you gave me, and I want you to kind of tell me a little bit about why this one sticks out to you.
This one, that smile is genuine. And it was kind of just another step in the journey of this is me. This is unapologetically me, flaws and all. But the first thing people see, what I realized, is not the bald spot in the back, but instead the smile. And so September was Alopecia Awareness Month, and it gave me an opportunity to kind of really educate people on something that they may not really know a whole lot about. So yeah, that was me really shouting to the world, hey, I'm not covering up anymore.
Absolutely.
This is me.
Absolutely. And I am just so encouraged by you. Now, here we challenge people to build a life they love without apology. So I close out each segment with the same questions, my LLH questions focused on life, love, and the pursuit of happiness. So now tell me, what's your life wisdom that you would tell your younger self if you could? What would you say to her?
Let it go. If it doesn't make you happy, let it go. If it brings you down, let it go. If it makes you frown, let it go. You just got to let it go.
Beautiful. What's your love wisdom? What would you tell your younger self if you could?
That beauty is on the inside. And what you have on the inside is what you will exude on the outside. So when you have love on the inside and you love yourself, that's what's going to exude out on the outside.
Awesome. And then finally, what's your happiness wisdom? What would you tell your younger self about happiness if you could?
So you absolutely have to keep a balance. Like a four-legged table, you have your spiritual health, your mental health, your emotional health, and your physical health. You've got to keep a balance on all four, because we all know a table that is off balance will rock and shake and is very unsteady. So as long as you keep each of those legs equally balanced, you have steadiness.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you so much, Tammy. I appreciate you. Please don't ever put another hat on. Keep showing us your confidence at all times. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the opportunity.
One thing about the Shake Off Fear superpower number 2, is that you have to rise up bold and confident with the assurity that you can accomplish, you can overcome, you can be, do, have, and achieve exactly what your heart desires, despite the false evidence that might be appearing real. That's the acronym I love for fear: false evidence appearing real. Now, when you consider the essence of Tammy's story and how it impacted her life and what she had to dig deep and overcome, you know for certain that it was her confidence that had took a hit, but it rose back up again. And that is the same resolve that we must have in our life to achieve anything that we want to have or experience. So my challenge to you, as you look to embrace this power in your own life, is to forsake all and trust Him. Now that's an acronym for faith. Have faith in yourself, and certainly have faith in the God that you serve, that He can allow you to face anything and overcome it. I am so excited that you tuned in today. And as with every episode, I would love to hear from you. So please rate and review. I will review your comments and I will take your feedback. But more than that, make sure you like and share and subscribe. I want to make sure that this podcast reaches you every week so that you can always be challenged to to embrace your power and go. Well, that's it, beautiful. Thank you for tuning in. Don't ever forget that you truly deserve life, love, and all the happiness your heart can hold. Be relentless in building a life you love without apology. I'm Denise Taylor, and you can always find me in our free Facebook community. Life, love, in the pursuit of happiness, easy to find. Now, if you want more information about my success superpowers, as I'm sure you do, download my free Success Superpowers ebook at denisetaylor.live/podcast. And one last thing, always embrace your power and go.